complete blank slate. And as we go along through life, things happen. We create these beliefs just like I'm talking about. But these beliefs really take on a life of their own, basically. So let's say that you are 6 years old, no, like 6 months old rather, 6 weeks old. Let's say you're a brand new infant. And what do infants do when they cry? Or when they're, I just gave it away. When they're hungry. Right? Or thirsty. Cry, right?
Cry.
So let's say you are thirsty or hungry and you cry. What usually happens?
Someone comes.
Get what you need.
Someone shows up, mom feeds you, somebody gives you a bottle, something like that. So at that moment, your unconscious mind says, why is this happening? I've got to make a connection here. We need to know a reason why. So what do you think one of the beliefs could be that you decide
When I
is
cry,
true?
I get my needs met.
When I cry, I get my needs met, okay? Or I get my way, something like that. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
So each of these beliefs, it's like a layer that we put on. So we now have this layer called, when I cry, I get my needs met. Right? And since we are committed to make this true, we are now going to look through the world with a certain set of lenses that will find evidence everywhere to prove this new belief true. Everybody with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say that you are 2 years old and you're having the time of your life. Anybody older children here? The oldest? Okay. Let's say, you know, you got mom and dad yourself. You get all their attention. And then one day, they bring that home.
Yeah.
What the hell?
That is right.
Right? What's up? And so they bring home another baby. What do you think you might decide is true as to why they needed another one?
I'm not enough.
How could you be enough if they needed another one? Right?
Right.
You'd be surprised at how many older children form that belief at the age of 1, 2, 3. Because the unconscious mind is learning from the get-go. The unconscious mind is always making these connections. Even though we don't have the ability to, with language, to explain, the unconscious mind is making connections right away. So let's say you're 2 years old, parents bring home another little baby, and you decide, I'm not good enough. And by the way, I've done a lot of research on this, and I've found out that limiting beliefs of I'm not good enough are only happen for for older children, the oldest, or the youngest, or anywhere in between. Or only ones. Only children also. So now I have this belief called I'm not good enough, and my unconscious mind says, find more evidence. Find me more. We got to fill the folder. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now these layers become forms of protection. They become identities. We see the world through these filters, and we put this on as though it's who we truly are. Right? So let me tell you the story, my story when I was 6 years old. When I was 6 years old, my sister, who was 10 years older than me, 16, she came home one day and she said, hey, get lost. This is the first time that I had had that experience where my sister and my best friend, this person I looked up to, told me to get lost. And I needed a folder for that. I didn't understand what that meant. And what do you think I decided?
I'm a pest.
Have you heard this before? That's exactly what it is. I am a pest. For years and years and years, I remember telling people the worst feeling I could ever have is being unwanted. And I never made the connection to this event. When Cindy said get lost, and I decided I must be a pest. People don't want me around. Do you think that caused me to guard up a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, it caused me to hold back a little bit, right? Because I believe that I'm a pest. And then I go through life. Oh, these are cool ones. And then I go through life searching for evidence that I'm a pest, right? Do you see a problem already starting to emerge? I've
No.
only got 3. When I was 11 years old, I was playing baseball, my baseball practice, and the head coach was throwing me batting practice. And he was a really old dude. He was like probably 30. Just an old geezer, right? And I'm 11, and he's throwing me batting practice, and I'm crushing the ball, and he's getting mad at me, and he's throwing it harder, and the harder he throws, the further I hit it. And what he kept saying to me was, "How come you never do this in the game? You never do this in the game. How come you can't do this in the game?" And the more that he got irritated, the more I enjoyed it, the harder I hit it. But what I didn't understand until much, much later is I started to believe him. And for my entire career, I didn't perform in the game like I could have, like I should have. So I underachieved my entire life in baseball because I took that belief on, that I don't perform.
I can't perform when it counts.
I can't perform when it counts, right? How are we doing so far? Is it making sense?
Oh, those are some things.
Okay, and now I've lost you all. So, let's say that you get into a relationship at some point in time, and something happens. They cheat on you, they run away, they whatever. They move back to, was it Australia?
Paris.
France. Move back to France. I can't take it anymore. What's a belief that you might pick up?
I'm not enough again.
I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. Relationships are difficult. Something like that, right?
No one loves me.
Great analogy. I can't see anymore.
I can't see. So we could be going, we can continue this process. But every time we take on a belief, we really own an identity with it. And then it becomes a layer, and a lot of times it becomes protection. And that's why we're afraid of intimacy, that's why we're afraid of vulnerability, that's where all of these beliefs get created. So if somebody has a negative experience in a relationship, the belief called men can't be trusted, is that belief designed to protect you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Because you can't be hurt again if you don't ever give your heart to anybody else again, right? But what's the ultimate cost of that?
No intimacy.
No intimacy. You don't actually have the connection that you're so desperately longing, right? So if you can imagine all of these beliefs showing up as layers, forms of protection, all of these glasses, I got a couple more, so I might as well just put them on. I mean, it gets ridiculous, right? And each one of these, here's the thing. Each one of these, we are committed to prove true. And some of them are contradictory. Does it make sense why we have issues? Does it make sense? Watch this in relationships. How many of you have an issue or challenge in one of your relationships? I can't see anybody. I'm assuming people are raising their hand.
Yes.
If you have an issue in your relationship, I want you to imagine this other person looking like this. And have you ever had this experience where you're both looking at something and you can't figure out why they don't see it the way you do? This is why. They see it the way they do. You see it the way you do. You guys could argue all day long about who's right or who's wrong. You're both right. You're just looking through different filters. You've got different layers on them. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So, if you understand that this is what we've become because of the way that we pick up these beliefs, and most of these are totally unconscious, and these are identities, then the process that we've got to go through to get back to who we are, right? Because it's not about becoming somebody new. It's about just getting back to who we are. The process that we've got to go through is just just taking these layers off. And eventually taking these glasses off, right? Now I had these glasses on for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. And it's very uncomfortable for me to see right now. Remember the Border Patrol? Anytime you take something off and you get uncomfortable, guess what most people are likely to do?
Put it back on.
Let me get back into my familiar zone, right?
Yeah.
So this whole process itself can be uncomfortable. But if you really understand it, that each one of these identities really starts to live on its own. Almost without your needing to feed it, without your, like they become automated, they become, little pieces inside of us. That's what creates all the conflict. That's what, like what you were saying, Amy, that's why you can have a situation that you absolutely hate, but at the same time you want something else that's conflicting. You've just got lenses and you've got identities that are fighting for the same attention, that are fighting for your same energy. And this is just how we're all programmed. So when you really get it, we just gotta take them off. And sometimes we take them off one by one. Sometimes it's a new experience that causes us to take them off. Sometimes, man, it's really hot too. Sometimes we can,
Suffocating, as it were.
it totally is. Sometimes we can take a bunch of them off at once. Right? Which is kind of what my experience was. My sister, I'll tell you about that in a second. So how many of you can recognize some of the identities that you probably put on? And can you see how they've been operating for such a long time? And so the question you have to ask yourself is, does it serve you anymore? Not is this right anymore, or not was it ever right, not was it justified, it simply doesn't serve you anymore. And I don't think I said this in the group the other day, but just because you've had a story for 10 years or 20 years doesn't mean you should keep it. And a lot of people aren't willing to change their circumstances because it means they have to put down a story that they're invested in, that they've got a giant file folder for. Right? So let me tell you real briefly about my experience with all this stuff. When I was at a seminar a while ago, I think I told you about the 90-day vision goals that we had to write, and I started to cry and all that stuff. So at this seminar, thankfully, there was a life coach in the room, and he understood what was going on. He took me through this process and helped me identify that 6-year-old event. That was the event that he helped me identify. And what we've got to do is just simply change the story. Because a belief is nothing more than a story that started once and then got a bunch of evidence. So the process to build a new story is just write a different one. Write a different outcome. And then go collect evidence for that. Right? So here we are. There was no room in the lobby, so I sat on a piano bench. And he just takes me through this process. And we try to identify where this issue was. And I come up with this 6-year-old event. And I tell him about it. And basically he just said, what could that mean differently than what you thought it meant? At the time, I made it mean I'm a pest. Right? And I'll never forget, because I was crying like a baby. I was crying so much that I had snot come out of my nose that connected to the floor.
That's a seriously good prop.
I was
Some serious
releasing.
crying.
That's a good prop.
I was
That's
releasing.
serious.
And then my tears were like shimmying down like firemen, coming down a pole. And
In the lobby.
do you need more? Do you want to know the colors?
Yeah.
And I was just trying to find a different answer. And then I realized my sister was 16 years old. She had a couple people with her. I just decided she was probably coming home to get drunk. Smoke pot, something like that, right? Now, if you were coming home to do that, would you want your little 6-year-old right there? No, because I was probably going to go tell mom. Or maybe she didn't want to have to justify to herself what she was doing in front of me because she saw me as this innocent young child. So as soon as I had that realization, the story went away. Because now I had a new story. And it really can be that simple. You know, and I remember, this is what happened.